Pete Buttigieg is pissed off and just slammed Donald Trump for the crisis unfolding in our skies because of Donald Trump and his mismanagement of our government. I'm going to have that response from Pete. I have Donald Trump trying to pass the buck to anyone else but him, and I got some thoughts about what really happened. First, here is our new transportation secretary. We have fallen very far from Pete, who is Sean Duffy. If you don't know, he's a reality TV star who became a congressman, but he started on the Road Rules Challenge. So that's the experience we got here, and it's showing very clearly he's not up for the task, because look at what he said yesterday as this crisis was unfolding.
A question about the flight path of the helicopter. I don't want to go into too much detail about the information we have from the FAA, but obviously it is not standard to have aircraft collide. I want to be clear on that.
Yes, that is his professional opinion to the American public. It is not standard for aircraft to collide. Well, I got to say, with our transportation saying things like that, I feel like we are in really good hands, because who else would be able to bring us that great analysis and insight that aircraft is not supposed to crash into each other? Thank you, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. We have fallen really far from Pete. Here's President Donald Trump trying to blame Pete Buttigieg for what happened in the skies, who, by the way, as you know, Pete Buttigieg and the Biden administration are no longer in power.
Reason, the FAA, and I assume maybe this is the reason, the FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation?
Let's just rewind that real fast. He says that Pete Buttigieg is currently running the FAA,
which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
That's a dementia moment, because Pete Buttigieg is not, as you know, in power.
A real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit. The Department of Transportation, his government agency charged with regulating civil aviation. Well, he runs it, 45,000 people, and he's run it right into the ground with his diversity. So I had to say that it's terrible. Then it's a group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, and I assume maybe that.
So Donald Trump there is blaming anyone but himself, and just to say that diversity obviously is not the reason why accidents happen. Diversity, immigration, these are all the things that make America great, and diversity ensures that we find the best and most talented people. It's actually a complete subversion of what he's saying here. And I guess his current transportation secretary didn't get the memo, because here is what he said after Donald Trump tried passing the blame everywhere else.
What happened yesterday shouldn't have happened. It should not have happened. And when Americans take off in airplanes, they should expect to land at their destination. That didn't happen yesterday. That's not acceptable. And so we will not accept excuses. We will not accept passing the buck. We are going to take responsibility at the Department of Transportation and the FAA to make sure.
Are you? Because President Donald Trump sounded pretty clear on not doing that. And actually, just hours later, what Donald Trump did was he signed an executive order blaming the Biden administration for the crash. I don't know what that does, but that's what he did. And here is my thoughts on this, and then I'll get to Pete Buttigieg's response. Is the control tower, this is a fact, the staffing was not normal during the crash, the FAA report said. An internal report suggested that the controller was doing a job usually handled by 2 people when an airplane collided with an Army helicopter, killing 67. Okay? So, as you all know, Elon Musk and Donald Trump have done everything they can to try to take people out of the federal government. They're trying to just completely empty it. This is what happens. And so my comment here. And if you're not following me on Blue Sky, I'd recommend you do that if you have an account. It wasn't DEI, it was Doge. That's what I think. Here's what Pete Buttigieg thinks. He said, real quick, if you're liking this video, please hit like on the video. And if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much. Despicable. As families grieve, Trump should be leading, not lying. We put safety first, drove down close calls, grew air traffic control, and had zero, this is so important, zero commercial airline crash fatalities out of millions of flights on our watch. President Trump now oversees the military and the FAA. One of his first acts was to fire and suspend some of the key personnel who helped keep our skies safe. Time for President Trump to start showing leadership and explain what he will do to prevent this from happening again. Bro, that is as cutting as you can get. That is so good. And it's so true. President Trump is the reason why we are less safe today. I don't know about you, but I am a little bit more cautious now thinking about flying. Or, I mean, imagine when he gets RFK Jr. in there, or if Tulsi Gabbard were to be, are you going to feel safer about vaccines and our food and our water supply with someone crazy like RFK Jr. in there? Kash Patel, as we saw yesterday as I spoke to Adam Schiff, is going, if he is put through, is not going to be going after the bad guys. He's going to be going after the good guys. Meanwhile, rapists, murderers, drug traffickers, billionaires who are looting our government and us will go off scot-free because their attention will be elsewhere. So this is a really important point. It's time for the president to show actual leadership. Now, of course, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Here is Pete Buttigieg's husband also weighing in just hours ago. Donald Trump is lying to you to distract you. The more we're debating whether or not people with disabilities should work in the government for their jobs are qualified for, the less time we're talking about federal hiring freezes, the gutting of safety boards, and the disastrous nomination hearings of the people he wants to put in charge of our safety, security, and health. That's true. Meanwhile, a DUI hire, not DEI, DUI hire, Pete Hegseth is now saying that all options are on the table when it comes to a military strike against one of our oldest and longest allies. And by the way, our neighbor, Mexico.
The drug cartels have been declared terrorist organizations. And if you find that, and we know if there's Al Qaeda, we're going to hit them. I don't care if you're in Somalia, Sudan, or in Syria. If we find that they continue to fire at our border control and they continue to put fentanyl into our country, as the Secretary of Defense, are you permitted now to go after them in Mexico or wherever they are?
Brian, I don't want to get ahead of the president, and I won't. That's ultimately going to be his decision. But let me be clear, all options will be on the table.
Bro, what happened to Donald Trump being like the dove, Donald the Dove, Donald the Dove? It turns out Donald Trump wants as much death as possible in this country and around the world. Donald Trump isn't the peace president. Donald Trump is the chaos king. We have to make sure that voters know that. The American people know that, because this is just the beginning. It has been 10 days, and we're already in total chaos. So remember, we can't let them own the narrative. This is not DEI, this is Doge.